How was Monsterpalooza?
Monsterpalooza was great.
It was good. All right. Well, you're not doing anything down here,
Well,
so.
yeah, but
All right.
my head is less interesting than the drawing.
Ew, I like your head.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. All right, we're here even though
I have favorable emotions about your head, too.
Even though I still sound like crap.
Yeah.
I feel better than I sound. This is what me working on 2 weeks and not having a voice.
Yeah, pretty much. I had to unwrap this because I want to start using it.
I like how you just like throw it on the ground.
I'll pick it up later. This is a Zeta series. Let me get the
Zeta
thing I was
series.
working on it last night.
Yeah. Is this the one you were working on in the car?
Yeah, when we were driving? Yeah.
Yes.
Ow.
So hello everyone. Oh, you can show that one too.
I scraped. This is the one I was working on at Glassman in the cabin.
Oh, can you see it over there?
Huh? Oh, yeah, right. So, I can see it okay. It's very shiny.
It is very shiny.
It's meant to be.
Powdered graphite. There's some nice little parts in that though.
So far, I think.
Yes.
I did find out that I did an experiment with charcoal, and it does not work at all like the graphite does.
Right.
in terms of this.
Email and ask and say, "Oh, what are you doing with this charcoal?" And it's not charcoal.
No, the charcoal doesn't work the same way as the graphite does on the clay board.
Period.
Not even a little.
Nope.
So.
Not at all.
Nope. If you try to polish it, it just wipes off completely. It doesn't. It doesn't adhere like the graphite does.
Now I can answer people's questions if they ask that.
Yes.
Is that charcoal? No, and don't use it.
Are you? Yeah, that's true.
Yes. All right. So it's what is today? Is it the 28th? No, it's the 27th. It has been almost a month.
Oh, since we did this last? Yeah, because we were traveling so much this last few weeks.
Yes, we were getting ready for Monsterpalooza. So we had Monsterpalooza on the, what was it, April 12th, 13th, and 14th.
Yep.
Came back, turned around, and then went to a painting workshop seminar.
Well, it wasn't really a workshop, or it was just kind of a get-together.
A get-together.
Yeah.
Of a bunch of people.
More of a retreat than anything.
There you go, a retreat. So.
Up in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Pennsylvania.
How do you deal with the graphite shine? Pencil Pets asks.
Oh, on clay I like the shine, so I emphasize it. And so when I'm done with it, I'll spray it with even a gloss varnish that'll make everything even shinier. Mm-hmm. On paper, if I want it to dull, because sometimes the graphite, the shine stands out and distracts on paper. Mm-hmm. I'll spray it with Liquitex matte, ultra matte medium, just thinned down a little bit,
right.
so it'll run through an airbrush, or you can spray fix it with fixative and then brush Liquitex the matte medium on top of it. But you just still have to be gentle and careful with it.
Right.
And you can't really do it on thin paper like the regular Strathmore paper that is the drawing series stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's too thin, it'll buckle.
Right.
But
there's no shine to this image at all.
No.
Because you work so lightly.
Well, right now, yeah, because I mean, if you look at from the side where it gets really black, like here, there's a little shine. Mm-hmm. But if I really want to unify it, even on this, if I just airbrush it lightly with the matte medium, it'll take away all the shine.
50-50 matte medium and water, right?
Yeah, it's got to be thin enough to go through
right.
the airbrush without sputtering. You know, so you want to.
Sir Real Illustrator asked how you hold the pencil very high up. Is there a reason for that?
Well, it depends on what I'm doing. Sometimes if I'm down on it like this, or bearing down on it, I'm usually working with more line. And if I'm building up value, then I'm working from a distance. So I'm just like lightly tickling the paper until the value starts to build up.
Right.
Because I don't like actually burnishing the tooth of the paper down. And if you want velvet in the render, you don't want to smooth out the tooth of the paper.
Right.
You want to continuously build it up through real soft layers until it gets dark. And then, of course, in the end with paper, you do want to probably fix it at the end.
Right.
So spray fix it.
Wow, that's an awesome drawing, you said.
Oh, thank you. my allergies are kicking up and I have a bit of a sore throat. You can hear it in my voice a little bit too because we both caught colds while we were traveling. But so, pardon me.
It's in Spanish, but I believe it says very good textures.
Oh, thank you.
With pencil textures.
Thank you very much. But let's see what else was I
That's a
doing.
lot of patience.
Yeah, I was playing with this in the car. I believe I started the line art part of it, like just a little bit of it, during one of our feeds one week. And then I worked on most of it in the car, and then when I got to Glasburn, I worked on it for like, I don't know, a few hours on the first day.
Yes.
And the second
And
day.
yes, he does draw in the car. Although I took no video of it.
What?
I took no video.
Well, not this time, but there is. And that's another reason why sometimes I'll draw from the side like this, because if the car is bouncing around, then if I make a stray mark, it's not so noticeable, because I'm basically, the pencil's moving like this when it's bouncing, so it doesn't do much.
How far out does that one?
So, and then
You get all the way up here on that other camera?
this one, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, it goes to like right there.
Yeah.
It's close. It's pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah, I set all that up before you came in.
Oh, okay. Wow. Doo-doo-doo.
It's at least we'll keep the video, even if this video glitches like it did that last time.
Yeah.
I have no idea what this is. I just started making a shape and playing with it too. That was doing that in the car as well. Yeah.
Daytona Hunt said I saw his work at Monsterpalooza. Oops, it's insanely beautiful and just downright wicked.
Oh, thank you. I like it's sometimes difficult to even like it. I know you hear this a lot, but the stuff really looks different in person than it does online.
Right.
Online, you're seeing basic, like you're seeing I guess you could say you're seeing the essential shapes online, but there's a lot of subtlety and stuff that gets lost.
Yeah, no matter how good a picture it is or how good a scan it is, it looks different.
Yeah, even in the prints, there's a little bit that's lost. And I have a really decent scanner for it too, but in the end, the prints end up being different, but a different beast than the original.
Well, yeah, because Nocturne Dahlia, Barbara says it's therapeutic. She draws in the car too.
Oh yeah. I've never been one to get motion sickness though, so there's some people that can't just because of that. But I spent a lot of my childhood, traveling across the country in cars and stuff. So
Rangvarus asks or says, on your drawings, I see like brushwork on your black background. Are you using brush
on this
too on the graphite? On that you are.
On this, I used a brush when I laid down the graphite. I used it was a brush that I dipped in water and then dipped in graphite powder and then made marks with it. I also use sponges, that are wet, and all kinds of. I mean, and it's a lot of very much a subtractive process too.
Right.
Sorry.
But there's no brush in the one you're working.
Not in this, no. I mean, if I wanted to say have a different texture and go from like rough, like these more velvet textures to a more smooth texture, I might use a really soft brush and just go in and lightly, brush across it, and it gives you like a, I don't know, like a 2 or like a 5% gray across the white. That's very, very soft, and it can make the surface a little different in texture, which is cool. If you do it too much, it ends up making the whole thing look a little marshmallowy.
Right.
So you have to work back into it quite a bit.
Not that squishy. Don't want that squishy.
Pardon me. I'll be right back.
No problem. I'll show them the art.
I gotta just blow my nose.
No problem. So everybody was asking people were asking how was Monsterpalooza? Oh God, I just dropped it. Almost dropped it. There we go. No, I won't drop it. So this is the clay board.
I have a cold.
Oh, stop.
But
You're fine.
Ow.
You almost knocked your coffee cup over.
Yeah, well, it's a tiny cup. So.
Yeah, but it would still be broken.
True. Oh, look.
I did that. I'm sorry. I almost dropped the piece. Damn. Look, now he's got a smudge on his butt.
Yeah, I can fix it. It's no big deal.
Oh, sorry.
It's just correct. It's just a little let me it comes off.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's not coming off. Just kidding. It's coming.
You can always fix my mistakes.
Well,
Will this drawing be available
it-
for purchase? Yes, eventually it will.
yeah. I just definitely. If you're interested in anything, just you can contact Vicky at victorialtw@gmail.com.
Correct, yes. Oh man, I had the dog. I was rubbing on the dog. Now I've got my face is blown up.
Well, yeah. Remember, because we have like poison ivy in the backyard, and he gets
That's
through
not
that.
it.
That's not it. It's
No,
just
it's
dog
just
dander.
it's the dog dander.
So, I can totally fix the mistake, but you hardly ever make mistakes for me to have to fix.
Oh, you're so sweet.
So, and I make a lot of mistakes for you.
No. I
do.
did not say that.
You didn't say it. I did.
Butt smudge for the win.
Butt Smudge. It's like our new band name, Butt Smudge.
I do not get it to smudge. Well, he has the board that he kind of holds his hand over.
Oh, this? Yeah. Right now it's a little high because there's a couple. I don't know why I have that underneath it. If I take this out, it'll run over it pretty easy. Oh, it goes on the floor.
Oh my god.
I'll pick it up later.
You should. The house is like trashed.
So this is how I normally draw when I don't want to get anything on it.
There you go. Everybody, there's been a bunch of. Okay, so I've had 4 hours of sleep in the last like 36 hours.
I drove the later part of the night last night, and so Vicky had like half an hour of car sleep and then 4 hours of regular
Oh
sleep.
yeah, so a bunch of these questions are flying by, and I feel like I'm in slow motion. As people are asking.
But
Where would we be without needed erasers? And my voice still sounds like really shitty. What inspires you to keep creating amazing, unique art?
this is just what I like to do. I
beat you.
well, no,
No, I'm
because
teasing you.
no, you know what's interesting because you say that a lot when you're joking
No,
around.
I'm joking around. I never do that.
But I've almost never drawn anything you've ever asked me to draw. Actually,
It's true.
It's always
Would you
been that.
please draw this?
You know,
Absolutely not.
and I generally just have a lot of stuff that I want to get to. So I always have something waiting to start when I'm done, and I guess part of the reason that happens is because I'll take a little bit of time in the middle of things, and if I have a lot of ideas, I'll sit down and start sketching them out
Draw, yeah.
and kind of stockpiling everything.
Right.
So
So you have a stockpile of
yeah.
unfinished ideas that are always there for you.
Yeah, and I go through this kind of, I guess you could call it a ritual at the beginning of when I'm starting anything like super serious. And it's sort of like I just take everything out and I look at it, and I'll gravitate towards an idea that I've had in the past, or part of me will just go, nothing is hitting me, so I have to start something new.
All right. This was a question from a little earlier in the stream. Do you have any tips for someone who draws obscure or dreamlike subject matter, but in a more graphic art style, meaning more bold lines, etc.?
It's a great style. I see other people who take a more of a line approach or a pen and ink approach to it. There's a lot of people out there to look at in terms of inspiration. Like Aaron Horkey does a lot of silkscreen and line art. I'd have to go through my list. I have ongoing boards of people that I follow online that
if you Alan's your largest inspiration board on Pinterest. You're under I_just draw.
I think the board is it's called Where My Eyes Linger, but
it's just under AllenWilliams.
It's
right?
under AllenWilliams, yeah, and I collect that kind of stuff. But in terms of tips for that, I'm not sure what you mean by a tip. Like it's easier to reproduce black and white like graphic line art.
Right.
So
Yes,
that's pretty cool. That you have like I wouldn't say it's an advantage, but it's easier
You have
to
an
reproduce
easier
it that way.
time
Yeah.
to reproduce it. That is true.
Yeah, and depending, it's, but it's just as welcome, I think, in the area of the kind of imagery that we're doing as anything else.
Right.
In fact, there was I think Donato did that post recently about how much more the black and white and monochromatic art there is out there nowadays. But
You can see my lip is blowing up, don't you?
a little bit.
That's
It's
because the dog was rubbing on my face. I'm allergic
and
to
you're
him.
slightly allergic to it.
Oh, I look like one of your ball jointed dolls.
Not really.
No.
No.
Sorry. They have the puffy lips.
So just in case you're interested, like this kind of thing, I don't know, sometimes there's new people following all, but
Right.
like they don't start off like this all the time. Sometimes I'll start at one spot and just kind of come out with,
I think you were.
I'll render out like
Did
this.
start that on a feed, didn't you, or not?
Yeah, I did. I started it on a feed as just a random
Actually,
kind of
it was.
it was just a sketch of, just a general shape.
Okay.
And it's like it started off kind of like this, where I just had light lines. And then I go back in, I start to like figure out like where I want highlights and things to be. Mm-hmm. So I'll sort of go through and I'll sort of, I think maybe this is something that comic book artists do quite a bit too, is they'll box their shadows. So you see where the, where the areas of the darkest shadows and stuff are going to be, and you sort of just kind of outline them on the form. And then you can compose the shadows that way because you're, sort of just looking at it almost as an abstract, set of rhythms and shapes.
Right.
So.
Well, we've had a couple of the same question in different forms.
Which is?
Do you ever have trouble staying motivated, or how do you work through an art block or slumps? And
okay, I actually was talking to a friend about art blocks lately, and I don't have the same kind of art blocks that most people are asking about when they do that. My art blocks tend to be indecision about what to do next. Not that I can't think of anything to do, but that I have too many options. I know that sounds like a weird, like backwards brag, but it's not really, because I have a lot of ideas and all of them seem the same weight to me. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes I'll sit like still for like a day or two or three, not knowing what I'm going to start up because I have all these different things I want to do. I don't really have periods where I can't think of anything to draw, because I've sort of, over the years, I guess, have trained myself that if I can't think of anything to draw, I'll just let my hand wander. And my hand will always find something. I know that sounds a bit odd, but I feel like if I just stop thinking about it so much and just let myself play, that I guess the way that I don't have artist blocks is that I let myself play when I start to feel bored with things. Or when I start to feel bogged down or tired. I find ways of playing. And I do also do various different things. Like I'll work with straight up graphite like this, or I'll do it this way. Or if I'm not into any of this right now, I'll just switch over and start doing
digital stuff.
Digital stuff in 3D and ZBrush or sculpting.
Whatever. Mm-hmm.
So I jump back and forth. So I'm always playing one thing against the other.
Right.
If I would say though, and I have talked to people with the kind of artist blocks that most people are talking about when they ask that question. And the one thing that most of my friends do when they're in that, and I probably, when early on, probably had the same kind of thing happen to me, but I just got into the habit of doing studies. Like if I couldn't think of anything else to do,
right,
I would do a study of, say, a hand, or I would pick a face that was particularly challenging in terms of wrinkle and light and shape, and just draw it representationally, and just make it an exercise. Mm-hmm. And almost always, when you're involved in an exercise like that, it'll lead your brain into other places. The thing that people get, I think, stuck on is the fact that they're having an artist block, so they don't want to do anything but come up with a really good new idea, and then they'll feel like they're over it. But what I think happens is that if you just let yourself do a little bit of work, or let yourself play with something you've already even done, or revisit a past piece,
and it doesn't have to be a fully finished piece,
and don't put any stress on it. Yeah, that's I think would be my answer to that for the other kind of block we were talking about.
Right. And here, hold on, just scrolling back to see which ones I missed. Because a couple of people have asked, how do you find an audience for this kind of art, or can you give advice on how to market this kind of style? Or?
I will say marketing is it's complicated. Vicky and Mike can both speak to that at the same time. But in terms of your audience, you have to put up the kind of work you like to do, and then put it up in either shows or forums, or make a
Right.
site that just showcases it.
And if I have said this once, I've said it 1,000 times.
Yeah.
You're not. Don't fret, because you're not going to have an audience of 10,000 or 20,000 or 100,000
Yeah,
right away.
it doesn't
Just
happen
keep,
overnight.
It doesn't matter. Just keep doing it, because, you know,
So
you just keep doing the art
if
so that more people can see it, and eventually they will see it.
right, and here's the weird thing about marketing, and Vicky and I have talked a lot about this. We can market the same way, but
Right.
we're doing slightly different things.
You and another artist.
Right.
You might even still be a black and white artist.
And,
if
and
it's
to some people, a slight difference is a huge difference in terms of artistic style, right? So
to say a
there-
buyer or something.
my work could be looked at in one way, and somebody sitting right next to me doing similar work, the person could walk up and totally love their work way more than mine, for whatever aesthetic reason they have.
Right.
So marketing really has to be something that you can do some general things, but you really will eventually tailor it specifically to your
Right.
particular work,
Right.
because your work is unlike anything else that anybody does. If you're doing your own work,
Right.
right? Because like I've been at shows with people who we've had the same booth setups next door to each other. I've had my best show and they've had their worst,
Right.
and vice versa, where I've had my worst show at a show where the person next to me has had their best.
Right.
And the only, that can be that it could be a matter of like a handful of people who
Right.
didn't come to the show one year who came back the next year.
Right.
But most likely it's probably because the group of people that were looking at the work at this show either liked one aesthetic more than another.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're looking at marketing and asking yourself, why didn't I do as good, or why did I do better than somebody else? Just remember, it kind of all depends on a little bit on the luck of the draw in terms of the aesthetic of the population that's looking at your work.
Sure, in the audience and what
Yeah.
is popular within. I mean,
Yeah, and you always have to. I mean, I'm not like saying people should judge themselves harshly, right? But you have to look at your work and see where it fits, and whether or not like I've done shows that were primarily populated by artists who catered to the fairy market, and I didn't do as good there.
right.
And
because
I've done
you're
other
not a fairy
shows,
artist, right?
which I don't really. I mean, there was a time when I did more of high fantasy and type stuff like that, but I've done other shows that were almost like mainstream shows and done really well for some odd reason.
Right.
So marketing is really definitely something that you have to tailor. You have to specifically. It's almost like you have to learn how to do that on an individual basis for your individual
For your art.
product.
There are
Yeah.
certain things, make when you pull together your convention booth and everything like that, make sure it looks professional and
Right.
things are clean and neat and things like that.
Make sure you present your best foot,
Right.
forward, and
Absolutely.
make your work as visible as you can online.
Right.
And that's how you actually find your audience, by the way, is being as visible as you can, which means,
Right.
you post regularly, find the right social platform that is, that you can enjoy doing,
Right.
Stuff like that. I mean, we don't really pay for any marketing, or haven't in the past. We pay for it with our time, though.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Do you turn your drawings into paintings or pastels?
I have on more than one occasion done a drawing that has ended up becoming a painting.
Right.
Yeah. I haven't done any pastel work, but I have pastels, but I just haven't played with them much. But yeah, I feel like that, and at any given point, I could pick a drawing that I've done and go back and reattack it as a painting at any, like if I wanted to do this, I could do another version of this larger as a painting if I wanted,
Right, right.
even though this is real abstract right now and has it's not finished yet, but it does have some. It does have. Can you see it? It does have some kind of forms that are sort of starting to kind of self-describe in
Right.
there. I think somebody over the weekend said it almost looked like a skeleton, a winged skeleton on a motorcycle, and that's because of the position of these lines, I think.
Right.
But who knows? I don't know yet how it's gonna resolve in the end. It's not quite done yet, so I do know that. So,
Right.
but
Yes, they do sound sick. I'm actually over the sickness. It's just I haven't had a voice for 2 weeks. It
Yeah.
sounded really, really bad.
She's had some lingering
From
laryngitis.
Monsterpalooza.
She's had, yeah, and I have an actual sore throat right now, and that's because I've been talking so much so lately.
Right,
Both
right.
at our retreat in Monsterpalooza, and being sick, and then even now I can feel it when I talk. But
Yeah,
but
so
we're dedicated.
actually-
We're dedicated. Damn it, we're here.
No, I know I sound terrible. I sound much better than I have over the last oh, it was really bad.
Well,
You couldn't tell. And let's see, the paper you are using is Strathmore 400 series,
Yep.
medium weight 400 series drawing paper.
yep, it's the regular medium surface.
He gets them in like packs of 10. He loves Strathmore.
I do.
Right now he's into Strathmore. This is the Zeta series.
This is a Zeta series soft cover.
Stillman and Byrne?
Stillman and Byrne sketch journal. I'm going to be playing with this probably later tonight too. I just got this because I like the fact that it's a soft cover. But I have hard covers and the spiral bound too. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons I like the Strathmore though is because you can do a line drawing, scan it in, adjust it, play with it, and then print it on another piece of Strathmore paper very lightly and draw back on top of it. And you can iterate for concept art that way. So when I do concept stuff, I will like literally print my drawings back on top of the paper, on a different
draw
sheet,
more on it.
and then iterate that way. Because I have a tendency to deviate really far if I'm just doing it by hand. But if I have a light drawing underneath of a previous drawing that I've done, I'll sketch close to that, so
Right.
I can iterate closer to the original idea.
All right, it's 9:30, so I'm going to say our website is AllenWilliamsStudio.com. You can also find us on YouTube at Allen Williams Studio. This will be up under the stories here for 24 hours. And then I will edit it and put it on Patreon, which is at patreon.com/AllenWilliams. And then it gets released to YouTube and everything. So if you guys have any questions, you can always hit our Patreon page, or you can check out the website.
Yep, and we're going to be at a Lightbox this year, and we're going to be back in Pasadena. Is it in September?
Yes.
In September,
That's
we'll
the
be
weekend after DragonCon.
the weekend after DragonCon. We'll be at DragonCon before that, and then the next weekend, Lightbox.
Yes.
So
All right.
if you're in Atlanta, come see us at DragonCon. If you're
Back in
California,
California in
come see us.
September.
And then I have a solo show happening in November at Copro
Yes.
Gallery. So
All right. Is a formal education in art necessary or just an advantage? If you can't afford schooling, what is my next best bet?
okay, generically, it isn't necessary or an advantage. What's necessary and an advantage is if you are a great student. If you're a really good student, you can learn from anyone, anywhere, including in a formal environment. But some formal environments tend to be very structured, and you have to determine if you're the person that wants to learn a structured, very academic process, or do you need a freestyle learning environment. They're both valid, and you can learn from any of them. Neither one of them are what I would say necessary over the other. You just have to determine if you're the kind of person that learns better in one or the other environment.
Right. Right.
I went to school for a little while. I learned things like printmaking and lithography, which I don't use so much, but all of that stuff was still there and informed the way that I work to a degree. Through lithography, I learned how to, I was exposed to different, kind of printmaking and the way, that etching
Sure.
and all those different things that inform the way that I do lines now, because I like the old school, like intaglio and etching and line art, like from Franklin Booth and those guys. But
You
in
also
terms
get
of,
to meet other.
well, it's fun to work with other people in one way or another when you're in a learning environment, unless you happen to be a person who just really digs into it on your own and the kind of person.
Right.
See, I learn more now on a weekly basis than I ever did in school, because I go and seek out the things I specifically want to know with aggression. not like
Right.
not anger, but I'm aggressively looking for learning environment and opportunities in the work that I do. So I spent 2 months on a concept art job, and every single day there was something new I needed to learn how to do in a three-dimensional environment in ZBrush. So I would literally look things up multiple times a day on the fly to learn how to do things.
Right.
So the best thing about being in any learning environment, the thing that it teaches you best, if you're in a good place, is how to learn.
Right.
How to learn on your own and how to teach yourself.
Right. And
That's my opinion, but that's how it seems to have worked out for me.
yes, and sorry, this question has come up a couple different times. Nocturne Dahlia answered it. The pencil is the Tombow Mono 100 6B.
Yeah.
Is the pencils he likes.
Yep. These are my kind of my go-to pencils.
Right.
I have 10B Mitsubishi Hayunis, but those are sort of more like I get those out and play with them every now and then and don't use them all the time.
Right.
They're like painting with graphite, so they're super soft. Whereas these are the 6Bs. I don't ever really need anything softer than that for what I do on these.
Right.
And if I do want to go softer than that for some odd reason, I tend to go towards a mixed media. Like I'll tend to come back into it with like gouache or something else.
All right. Lord Jojo asks, excuse me, if you want to make a big area for shadow like the background, is there a special technique? This one.
For this, the background, that's part of the reason why I kind of developed this style for myself, was that I could use graphite powder and cover a lot of area and then work back into it and either leave or subtract as much as I wanted. For something like this, for the bigger pieces, it's just...
But this technique you have is up on our YouTube. You can see you doing it several times and everything.
Yeah, there's a few videos of us working with it. But something like this, it is just...
Where's your other one that had a little bit of a background there? That's just slow patience, right?
Well, you build backgrounds like you do that. You just have to slowly build it up over a course of time. It actually takes longer to build a background like this than it does to paint a background.
Right.
You know, graphite is... to do it in a way that doesn't look like... Unless you like the big scrubbing mark making in backgrounds, which you can do that too. But if you're trying to build up, say, an illustration type image that has an environment in it, to build up the entire piece, it takes a long time to sit there and go, because you're basically going over it and like your hand is a printer and you're going over it in layers.
Right. All right. R.Y. Kaufman. You're watching Endgame and you had to take a potty break, so you came in here. You need to go. He needs to go back, or they need to go back and watch Endgame.
Go finish Endgame. Go finish Endgame.
No spoilers, but go finish Endgame.
That's funny.
We have so
that's hilarious.
I know that is very funny. I had to laugh.
And thanks for saying that. That was nice. I haven't seen it yet.
Go watch Endgame. No. So over Monster Palooza, Hellboy dropped, which I really want to go see that. Because you had some demons in there that were ripping people apart.
Yeah, I didn't know until we got to Monster Palooza. There was an article, Stan Winston studio, the school thing. They put it out that in the article, it said I was responsible for the demons in hell, and I didn't actually know that I was that I was the most, because there were a lot of people that worked on that film, and even the stuff that I did got added to by the three-dimensional artists.
Hold on just 1 second, because Lord Jojo asked again. He said, "Oh, thank you. Some artists use charcoal for the background, and charcoal does not work the same way.
Not for this. It'll work okay for paper.
Okay, so it's good on the paper, but not on your...
Yeah, you can combine charcoal and graphite, for the paper aspect of it, because it'll adhere to the tooth. But for this, this stuff is so smooth that for some reason the graphite will adhere, but the charcoal will just wipe right off. It just doesn't stay where you put it.
And this is clayboard.
Yeah.
Ampersand clayboard.
Right.
So I wanted to get that straight and everything, so they knew that.
Yeah, you can totally do graphite and charcoal on paper and on other porous surfaces.
Right.
And maybe somebody else knows a way to make it adhere to a smooth surface, but on clayboard it didn't really work at all when I tried it. So. Also, I've been recently, like what was it? Last 2 weeks ago, I did a little experiment with Carandash graphite powder and General's graphite powder.
And the General's.
That's what was Cretacolor, and the Cretacolor was a little darker and blacker. And then of course, we go to look at it this week.
It was the General's.
I meant the General's was a little darker and blacker. And of course, they're discontinuing the General's powder.
I know, I've got the last jar.
There wasn't so much of a big difference, though, that the stuff will look hugely significant.
But people kept asking, which one do you like better? And you had them just thrown into one box.
Right.
And
well, this has happened to me more than once. That 3 or 4 times in my artistic life, I have fallen in love with a particular material that is then discontinued like a month later.
Yes, so then you...
So I fall in love with it too late.
No.
I loved you, but too late. Like there was an illustration board that we used to work on that was really great for erasing back into an
Oh,
airbrush.
yes.
And
Boy, that was like in
they
the
just
early
totally
90s.
they just totally killed that. Yeah.
Or is that the one that you and Stephanie were talking about?
No, that's Strathmore 500 series board. That's great. That's still around, but it changed a little bit.
But that's
It
the
did
thing
change.
is, so sometimes
Sometimes
they'll
they'll change
change the formula just a little bit, and
It'll act differently.
yes,
It
'cause
acts
I know
differently for
Stephanie,
her and the watercolor. It
because
didn't
she
really
uses
change the way that I
watercolor.
did it.
Right.
Yeah, so-
I know. I use those weird clay and graphite pencils from Conte and Crayon Dash.
That's
Oh,
cool.
someone asked, what inspires you the most?
I don't have a singular inspiration. Most of the things that I do come from a kind of probably an amalgamation of all the things that inspire me.
It's true.
You
You
know what I
should
mean?
see our.
I mean,
What's that?
I have, look, just
Well,
so
in your last Muddy Colors, you kind of talked
I did a
about the
reference
different
thing. I mean, I have
references.
sculptures from friends of mine. Like there's some Amilcar pieces up there. There's some animal figures that I just
Well,
got from
there's
3D Total.
There's a
This is actually a ball joint doll that I got from
show. I remember that one.
that I got from John Mahoney over at Monster Palooza. It's in parts right now, but and there's a lot of art of these, sculpture. I love sculpture in general. I have a whole table over there that's like half filled with sculptures. I'm inspired by a lot of stuff, and the honest answer about inspiration is most people don't know where their ideas come from. But I mean, after having thought about it as much as as I have, I feel like I can say that it comes from everything. It's not that I don't know where it comes from. It just like all of these things that I see like on Pinterest, all of them go into your head, and and then some of them that you really like,
Stir around.
they grab hold, and
Right.
and that's why I do have some favorite artists. I won't say that I have one like person that I love above all,
Right.
but I do also guard against like referring too heavily or being too derivative
one.
of one person.
Right.
Yeah, because you can really fall in love with a style that somebody else has created, and you can want to evolve that language in
Right.
yourself, but you need to have time to let that evolution happen. So
Right.
usually when people find an artist that they like, they'll go through a period of emulation, and then then the evolution will happen, and it'll become something else.
Yeah. All right, here's a Surrealistrator asks, how do you feel about digital art? Is it valid in the fine art and art world?
I find almost every form of art that I've come into encounter with, it's based on content, on the idea behind it to me. So there's plenty of digital art that I love. There's when things like we were just talking about when things become too derivative. I don't. You don't see a lot of people do photo bashing for concept art and then promote it as their own personal art because
Right.
of the nature of what it is. But in terms of like stuff like that, when you are talking about somebody who's good at photo bashing, and they do that in concept art quite a lot, in different, depending on the show or what you're doing for. It's a tool to get to a point, to a necessary point, and these are
Right.
artists that don't have time to create a lot of the stuff
Right, they don't have a
from
week
scratch.
to do. Right.
So I'm really kind of generous when it comes to my own definitions of what art is. I will say that I don't like everything out there, but I mean pretty much everything. I accept the fact that anybody can call what they do art.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I would never want anybody to not do their art based on what I thought of it.
Right.
Because I damn sure won't change what I do based on what they think of me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well.
So I'm not gonna turn around and tell people that you
Your
can't find
abstract art
if your
isn't
art
art,
feels
right?
if your art feels valid to you and you have and that's the way it is, then do it.
Right.
And I'm not I have no problem with it. I love all the different types of like digital and traditional and
Right. Now,
hybrid.
for your fine art, you don't do digital art.
For my own work, for my own personal work, I love having a tangible original at the end of it.
Right. Because that's how you work.
Yeah, but I also really get into doing digital stuff when I'm doing concept art because everything moves so fast, and I can be so fluid with it. You know what I mean? So and
You can be so callous. Throw it in there and go, oh, wait, this
because
is back.
because
You're gonna save so much
well,
chance.
yeah. I mean, by necessity, you have to make a zillion changes over the course of
Right.
I did 360 iterations of one character for a concept art job. By necessity, I didn't want to draw that character every single time, right?
Yeah, but I saw, did I tell you this? That one of the people that was working this week at the workshop and everything,
Yeah.
because there were traditional painters and designers.
Pardon me.
Someone had 1,200 layers on their Photoshop.
Yeah, because they were animators, right? Yeah, yeah.
1,200 layers.
1,200 layers. Each layer was a different piece of reference, right?
Yeah, well, different, yeah.
Pardon me. I go through periods when where I'll have like a coughing spell from all this stuff, and then.
All right. Someone asks, is there a plan, like guidance 1, 2, and 3, etc., to make a perfect or good drawing work?
Not really.
There's not. It's not that easy.
It's more like making a good drawing. To me, it feels more like this is a metaphor because I don't surf, but it feels more like I think surfing probably feels, where you're responding to things and you're sort of feeling it out all the way from the beginning to the end and responding to minute changes and just trying to get to a successful process, like because it's not the end of the surfing, you know, that you're looking for. It's that middle part, the doing of it.
Right.
Sounds bad.
A vague, annoying question. That was not me saying that. This is
Right.
the person.
Okay.
It's not vague or annoying to us.
If you're not annoyed by the fact that I have to cough here, then I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, but what books do you recommend artists to have in their library?
There are two that you've probably heard of before, and quite a lot. Art and Fear and The War of Art are two really great books. Let's see. Those are the
Art and Fear.
Art and Fear.
And The War of Art.
So Art and Fear is about doing your own work, your honest work, what is yours. And then The War of Art is about what to do with that once you've done it. Like how to sell it, how to become a professional artist.
They're both like little skinny reads.
Yeah,
they're, you know,
you could probably
3-hour, 4-hour reads.
Definitely. Those are the two primary books that in the past, couple of decades that have stood out to me.
Yeah, that's for
and it's not
getting the work done.
That's not about technique
or anything.
Technique is there's all kinds of books out there for that. If you're wanting to learn like an academic drawing process, there's the Charles Bark drawing course, which is a very, very academic, like atelier type drawing process. All of the most of the books about drawing will tell you about the basics of drawing. In fact, what I do most of the time when you see me draw with just a pencil, it's not that much different than any of the basic stuff you see anybody else does. It's all of the stuff that people like to look at, though, or what they're asking about normally, is about the decision-making process, and that's something that becomes very distinctly individual.
Right,
and it's very hard to give anyone.
And those are the things that you don't see you doing.
Right.
Right.
Well, it's the invisible part,
The invisible part that's. People go, wait a minute, where did you get from
I sometimes
here?
feel like the question people most want to know the answer to is the one you can least tell them about. And that's
which decision to make.
Right, and that's like, where did your aesthetic come from? And, why does your art look like it does? Well, it looks like it does because over the course of years, I've sort of gravitated to a certain way of developing hierarchical forms and rhythms.
You know what? Yeah. That goes back to one of the first questions tonight that I didn't get to. Someone said that, did your art look like this from the beginning?
No,
it did not.
No, I mean, I went through a phase of doing like romantic fantasy. I've done cute, like baby dragon type art.
You do very good cute dragons.
But that was.
They are pretty darling.
Well, but at the time, I did pinup when I started at the beginning, because I was infatuated with like Vargas and Soriyama and Olivia, who I still Olivia's got some beautiful work. If you've ever wanted to check that out, and there's some, and I haven't seen Soriyama's work lately, but when I was young, I looked at it all the time. But
do you ever use tan or brown tone paper?
I have a little bit. I haven't like made a huge extensive use of it, but it has a beautiful look, especially if you're using like the brown paper with like a sanguine, like a red, like mark making. I think that can look really beautiful. And pretty much anything that you can draw with, you can do the same kinds of drawings that I'm doing with it. You know what I mean? My work looks pretty much the same. It would just be in a monochromatic color, So. I also like drawing.
You are great at drawing, someone says.
Thank you.
McKelvey says, I was struggling and your answer helped so much.
Well, anytime, and I hope so.
Both amazing, and they say thank you.
You're very welcome. In reference to the tan and drawing question that we were talking about, the tan, I sometimes do like to get like a gray paper and then work with white.
Yeah,
and
Daryl
do it.
said that you used to use colored paper
Yeah,
years ago.
and then I would pull whites out, like, well, actually, kind of like I'm doing here, where I'll use an eraser to do a subtractive process, whereas with gray paper, you're just, you're building up the highlights first and the higher values first.
Right.
And what's interesting to me is I tend to pay more attention to form when I'm doing it this way, and line kind of when I start out like this. But I've got no point now where they're starting to come, like I'll start drawing with the side of the pencil a lot now, like you've seen me do, and that tends to push me towards the form rather than to the line. But I used to do a ton of black, like ink work too.
Yes.
Because I actually started with brush and ink and pen and ink. That's what was my first.
Colored pencil too.
Well, a little bit color pencil and also just straight up graphite.
Yeah.
All
right. Pencil Pets asks, what online art schools would you recommend? I'm considering the Watts Academy.
What?
WATTS, which I don't know that you know anything about that, but
no, I can only tell you that I haven't been involved in many of the online art academies and things. I've subscribed before to like the Gnomon Workshop, where you can, for like, I think it's something like $500 a year, you have access to all of their instructional videos and stuff. I think IMC Smart School is probably really good from what I've heard. I've been to IMC personally before.
They also have Smart School.
But they have Smart School, and the
they
whole
have
group of people, their
from
philosophy,
drawing to painting to
everything. Yeah, their whole teaching philosophy is wonderful, and if you I think it's not cheap, but it's way less than having to pay for a year of college. And I think 6 or 10 week period with a Smart School would probably be equal to a couple years of college. Because going to IMC I learned more at IMC in a 10-day, or what is it, a 7-day period, 8-day?
7, yeah.
Than I did the entire 2 or 3 years that I was in college.
Because you were you're in a room right there.
You're in a room with focused individuals who aren't trying to tell you to be a different kind of artist. They're just addressing the questions that you have directly and showing you what you want.
You're doing, right.
So if I highly advise that, if you can get involved in IMC, it's definitely a place to evolve.
Okay, we have some more questions here. It's like already 9:52. We have like 10 minutes left, which is crazy.
And hi, Daryl.
Yes.
I saw that you were there.
Yes, and first, let me say our website is AllenWilliamsStudio.com. We're here on Instagram, and where this will be up under stories for 24 hours, and then I will put it up on our Patreon, which is at patreon.com/AllenWilliams. If I get all these out in my brain, this will be amazing. What else? I don't know.
That's pretty much it. You have that.
Facebook. You can hit us over there at Facebook if you want. You can follow Alan's personal page. I don't know. I think that's all. I'm sorry. I'm still working on the 4 hours of sleep.
And listen to my voice.
Mine sounds worse. We sound horrible. This will be one of those ones where I'm like video editing it later and go, oh my God, this is horrible. Maybe I'll just delete that out.
I just sit around the house going,
Stop. We sound terrible. Okay, let me go back to your questions. Do you like any retro sci-fi or fantasy art? If so, what are some artists you like?
We were talking about, was it Roger Dean we were talking about just this weekend about he does the Yes album covers. There's a lot of...
That was with someone else.
Yeah, no,
that was not with me.
Yeah,
so
no,
I'm not
it was
sure.
I love the old stuff. I mean, I grew up with Frazetta basically and Geiger in terms of art books.
Lego.
I grew up at a time when I was kind of forming as a kid that there was no way to look up artists. You had to either find them in a book somewhere.
Magazine?
Or a magazine article. And so Crash McCreery early on I saw in like a...
and the Heavy Metal.
Heavy Metal magazine was it for me, man. I was
Heavy
like...
Metal, and what were the other ones? Because we're so old, we're pre-internet.
Yeah. Seriously, it was Heavy Metal, the old... and I guess I got the horror, I got horror from Creepy and all
Right.
these different magazines. And there was also Epic magazine and Omni,
And
which
then
had
there was
illustration in it. You know?
Then we actually, one year we paid for the Illustrator Showcase.
Illustrator Showcase, which was a book about that thick and cost about $150 or whatever it was.
Oh, it
And it
was
was crazy
expensive.
expensive. But it was the only way you could really see a compiled source of all the illustrators working.
Right. The
That's not
covers.
really representational of everybody working. It's just whoever was wanting to pay $2,000 to put their
Oh,
piece
I
in a
know,
book.
because it costs.
Yeah.
Because we looked into that, and I was
Yeah,
like,
it
well,
cost 200. It was like $2,000 a page to get your work in the book.
yes, it was
You know?
very expensive.
Yeah,
So every time you want to bitch
I
about
think
the
it's
internet,
still around. I think Illustrator Showcase is still around though.
no, but anytime you want to bitch about the internet, it's like, Jesus, at least you can find people.
I love it, man. I love being
know.
able to go online. Somebody says a name, and I'm in 2 minutes. I've got a website with their
I
art.
know,
Looking
you're
at
like,
it.
oh,
It's
I
like,
can find it. All right.
I'm not one of those old people that are internet resistant. I am
No.
internet pro.
No, it's
Yeah.
so much easier now. Jesus.
Yeah, I love it.
Really is. Okay, Drift Spaceman asks, how many hours a day would you suggest? How many hours a day would you suggest to focus on drawing to see good progress?
I would say that if you're just starting, you can start off with even, more than 10 or 15 minutes if you have trouble finding time. But I typically will, it's hard for me to answer that question in terms of linear time because I sit down and draw like because I want to. So for me to say, I've told myself I have to draw this amount of time. Well, when my kid was born, I had to make up a schedule for myself. So I would actually literally clock myself in and clock myself out sitting down so that I would get 8 hours.
If
Remember?
my suggestion is if you are coming home from a different job or something
Yeah.
and you're only normally getting very little time, then say I'm going to just do a half hour today
Yeah.
and make sure you get that half hour and then bump yourself up a little bit and
Yeah.
then because any amount is going to help and
Right,
work.
right. And if you consistently do it, the phrase that we kind of live by here is little done often makes much. And so if you want to like learn something, the key is like the way I learned ZBrush, or at least what I know of ZBrush at this moment, is that I learned like a simple tool, and then as I needed to, I added one little thing at a time over a course of a long time. And so now I can functionally make things, which before it was more like, oh, I can play and explore, but now I
Right.
can actually, like I could make
Right.
this in ZBrush if I
Right.
wanted to.
All right.
But that's the way to learn anything. It's just little bites, little bites.
Another question. Have you had any major contracts concerning your art? Do you think selling prints and pieces outweighs selling shirts and album covers? Okay. We've had this discussion. We do things differently than other people. We've always sold your individual artwork at conventions.
Right.
We tried t-shirts for a little bit. T-shirts are hard. There was no Redbubble or anything like that when we
T-shirts
first
were
started.
hard for us.
For us,
Yeah.
because before you had to get, just like before there was print on demand, if you wanted quality prints, you had to pay $2,500 for a print
Run of
run of
500,
500
yeah.
of them, and not knowing whether they sold or not.
Right.
So we've gone about things a little bit differently. Alan has contract work that he works on part of the year. He works on his own individual work, and then we also do some
We have licensing.
royalty work,
Yeah.
licensing and stuff like that. So there's a really cool PSY Acoustics
Yep.
has a deal with us now that for like
I have my artwork on acoustic panels that they use in studios.
for
Yeah. So
for speakers and everything, which is really cool. And so
there's an answer to that. What I think he was asking though is don't limit yourself by putting any of those things off the table until you've tried them.
right,
Try all of them,
right,
but at the same time, don't have your own personal. I think you need to have your own personal section of your work that is inviolate, that nobody can tell you what to do with, and also be a professional enough that if you want to get a contract with somebody, you can tailor what you do to what they need. But you always, I think, have to have your own work moving at the same time, that you feel like nobody can touch this part of it because this is me.
right,
And then you have this other part that's like, okay, here's the me incorporated, the business part of me,
right.
that will say, do the design that's going to go on the wine label, or whatever. Don't throw anything off the table until you personally have tried to make it go.
Right.
There are people that can make any of those things you were talking about work really well,
Right.
and you may be one of them. You might make them all work well. So don't throw anything away.
It's
Yeah.
and that's you have to find out where your art works and what you want to do with it.
Right.
It could be that selling t-shirts works really well and everything like that.
Right.
And,
Because my sister-in-law sells products very, very well. Like she
Yes.
does bags and T-shirts and like Franklin mint plates and all these different things that work really well.
Yes. Yes.
Whereas there aren't a lot of people that want stuff like this on a Franklin mint plate. You know what I mean? It's about whether or not where you license your work and what it's going to be on and
Right.
what it's applicable to. Now that being said, I do
So for
sometimes
us, some things outweigh other things.
right.
For your particular art, it could be the opposite, and that's okay. It's just
Yeah. I do licensed work as well, where I'll do like somebody else's property, like Doctor Strange, or like I'm doing a Batman
right.
piece, or but I don't tend to do things about with other people's property from myself because I'd rather it be licensed, right?
Right.
So I typically but I'm not telling anybody that not to do fan art and that kind of thing if that's what you like to do. It's just that's my own thing. I just like to have a license in place before I do something like that, so
All
that I
right.
feel like I'm entitled to do it.
Pink Bald Guy asks, does copying pictures going to help you improve?
Anytime you set your hand to a piece of paper and try to emulate something you're looking at will give you the ability to heighten your observational skills.
Right.
So yeah, you can copy photographs and it'll make you better. You can copy your hand and it'll make you better. You can draw from anything, anything that gets your hand on the board and is fun, and granted, it's not always fun because there's definitely a part of some of these things that becomes a labor. But any way you want to go about it, as long as you approach it, with intensity and purpose, it'll make you better.
And that ties into this person's about how do you start learning anatomy. It's always observation.
Observation. I think the best thing about figure drawing is not that you can memorize anatomy, but that you learn how to see it.
Right.
That you learn how to observe anatomy when you're looking at it. You understand that this value change is because the shape is changing angles. You know what I mean? And why it's changing angles and what it's likely to do.
Oh, this is exciting. Zoe Carpenter says, I leave for Far East Creative Expressions today.
Oh, wow. Cool.
It's a week-long class camp for high schoolers, and she's going for drawing.
Oh, that's awesome. That is amazing.
Should be exciting.
Yeah, I got
Very
goosebumps.
excited.
Look, those
I
are
know.
real goosebumps because you
Yes.
just said that. That's awesome. I love hearing people, going on like these artistic excursions. It's
Yes.
like it's definitely worth something.
Yeah, it says pencil is the Tombow Mono 100, and Pencil Pets asks, have you ever refused to sell a piece to someone or regretted selling one to a particular person?
I'm not sure that I've ever had that specific instance. I think, I could see selling something to somebody who maybe bought it and then treated it with disrespect or something. It's never happened to me, but I could see that happening to somebody. I don't typically hold on to my work very long because I keep moving. I know artists that will hold on to pieces for a while because they've done something that they're super proud of and they want to see it.
All of the people that we've ever dealt with, everyone,
Yeah.
we have never had that instance where we regretted selling to someone. Or
not that.
no one's ever been like a real asshole or a
The
pig
only
about
thing,
anything.
the only thing I've ever had a regret is when I've done something that I liked and maybe I changed it because I thought it would make it sell better. I regret that. Like I did a piece once where I changed the figure because I thought it would sell better if it went this way or the other way, and I learned a lesson there that it might have sold better, but I felt worse about the piece. And so I don't really do that anymore. I just try to do the stuff that I like to do.
Yeah, but
again,
that had nothing to do with the particular
it didn't have anything to do
person.
with the person. Yeah.
No.
So, and I'm
All
really,
of our collectors and people that buy stuff are awesome.
yeah, and it's funny because I really become attached to something so much that I won't be honored by somebody else becoming that attached to it by buying it. You know what I mean? Because to me, it's like I did this and I liked doing it, and now somebody else is coming up and giving me money that they spent their life to make
Right,
in order to
right.
get it, and so they like it as much as I did. So and I don't usually have this. I don't like to sit on things that I've done. I like to continue to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Keep
So,
moving.
yeah.
How it's probably almost going to switch off. Oop, yep, 20 seconds. Last question. How long have you been drawing?
Since earliest since I was 3, but professionally since 1988.
Yes, 88.
Yeah.
We're kind of old. So we have 15 seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we will try to hit it again next week. It should be fine.
Yep.
So talk to you guys later, and thanks for coming.
Pick up a pencil.
Bye.